I think the greatest advantage of national inquiries is a technique or a strategy that enables the National Human Rights Commission to do three major things simultaneously. To investigate where there are violations of human rights, very often involving a large section of the community. Second, to monitor whether or not the government is in compliance with the international human rights treaty obligations that governments have generally undertaken. And third, to educate the community.
We can see common elements across all forms of national inquiry processes, while also recognising that each will have distinctive features. I mean, the common elements will include having good terms of reference, a very clear focus, an understanding in the beginning where this inquiry is going to go to. The process itself will involve a combination of documentary evidence and oral evidence. It's very important to recognise that taking evidence from people so that they have the opportunity to tell their own stories in their own words in a public forum is an important part of the process. But always, every inquiry will be different. There will be different issues about, for example, confidentiality, about personal information. There will be different questions about whether we are dealing with specific human rights violations or broad patterns of violation. And so we need to have, in designing a national inquiry, the capacity both to identify those aspects that are common, that we can draw upon from past experience, and those that will be distinctive to the particular subject matter that we're investigating. Sometimes we would pick the inquiry subjects because of what we were being told. Not just complaint caseload, but commissions have a wide range of interaction with the community. And if we're finding similar issues coming up in what people are saying to us, whether it's in the complaint system or through meetings, attending conferences, just day-to-day contact with people, then we need to examine it.
In 1996, one minister of Government of India made a complaint to the Commission that there were certain starvation deaths in KBK districts of Orissa, a state in India. In 1997, some NGO approached the Supreme Court on a similar issue by filing a writ petition. The Supreme Court, when learned that similar matter is pending before the National Human Rights Commission of India, passed orders that this is a case of violation of human rights and appropriate authority would be the Commission. And thereafter the Supreme Court passed order directing the parties, that is the writ petitioner and also the state of Orissa and the union government to be before the Commission for the purpose of inquiry of this case.
төрийн нэрийн өмнөөс үйл ажиллагаа эрх мэдэл хэрэгжүүлж байгаа албан тушаал алтнууд санаатаагаар иргэдийн эрхэд халдаж байгаа хүний эрхийн хамгийн ностой зөрчил төдийгүй энэ бол гэмт хэрэг байгаа юм аа. Тийм учраас бид энэ хүний эрхийнх нь хамгийн том зөрчлийнх нь бол энэ анхныхаа хяналтын ажлын сэдвийг болгож энийг авсан. Үр дүнгийн тухай тэгвэл үр дүн бол бидний анхны хяналтын нээлттэй хяналтын үр дүн бол одоо хүлээж байсан нэс илүү гарсан гэж бид боддог. За яагаад тийм одоо их сэтгэл өндөр байна? Яагаад тийм одоо сайн үр дүнд хүрсэн бэ гэвэл энэ сэдв бол яхахгүй олон нийтийн хүсэн хүлээж байсан энэ талаар бол зайлшгүй одоо дуурах ёстой ийм сэдв байсан бол ойлгомжтой байсан нэг талаас нь тийм ба. За ингэж чиглээд цааш их юм болж байна.
To start with, when we get complaints, we try to get people together and without going to court or make a big to-do about it. Sometimes it doesn't work because people sometimes they have their own emotions and so on and so forth. As an offshoot to the case study of the people in Mae, whose population 1,243 persons been erased and so on, and now they get back their IDs, get back their citizenships. We started working with the other groups, and we found that there are a lot of people in our country who have been moved from one place to the other, starting with the building of dams, And we find that most of them do not have any IDs. And when they move from the remote areas, from the mountains into the plains, then they get into real problems when they don't have the ID, you see. Actually, it so happened that the APF, Asian Pacific Forum, became interested in this. And I heard from them that there were something like 39 million people all over the world that are in the same situation, that they have been moved inside their country. They become internal refugees, and there are no international organization. The UN doesn't have any organization to help them. So we started working with 5 villages now.
Well, the Commission was receiving numbers of complaints from disabled people about the lack of accessibility of public transport. And as you know, for disabled people, most of whom will never be able to drive themselves, lack of access to public transport denies them the right to education, the right to work, the right to participate in the community. And we were dealing with these individual complaints, which all came down to something at the operator's level. But it was becoming increasingly clear that resolving those complaints was doing nothing about the system as a whole, and that there was really significant systemic issues.
Бусад үндэсний байгууллагууд өөр сэдвээр одоо амжилттай хяналтын ажил хийсэн өөр сэдвүүдээр хийж байгааг бид сонсох тийм ээ, бид тэрийг мэдэх ямар аргаар явуулсныг энэ сонирхох ийм одоо их сонирхолтой байгаа. Бид энэ хяналтын ажлаа эхлэхийн өмнө Австралийн хүний эрхийн үндэсний комиссоос нээлттэй хяналтын ажлыг хийж байсан холбоотой нэлээд олон баримт материалуудыг бас үзэж судалж байсан. Эндээс бас бидэнд одоо санаа авсан зүйл бий.
Given the nature of the issues, we wanted the maximum cooperation and involvement. And in order to achieve that and to stop what becomes almost an automatic knee-jerk defensive reaction, we identified that we would not use the Commission's powers. It was not our intention to use the powers to follow up the inquiry with court action. That we did not see this, if you like, as a name and shame and indict inquiry. And on that basis, we were able to get very high levels of involvement from regional authorities who have the major responsibilities for actually funding public transport, from private operators and their organisations, as well as from central government. And one of the interesting things was these people had never before sort of, in a sense, come together to consider these issues. And so the process of the inquiry actually provided a focus that would otherwise not have occurred.
We also did quite a lot of face-to-face things. So the Commission has a number of educators that have regional responsibilities, and they went out and ran sort of preliminary forums in various areas. And we found that that was probably the most successful thing, actually, because you could get disabled people's advocacy organisations, some of the social service organisations all together in one room, and promote the whole idea of the inquiry. And I think those face-to-face promotions, both prior to the inquiry starting and during the inquiry when we were asking for submissions, were very important, actually.
Actually, there's even a clause in the law that if they don't come, they'll be punished, even imprisoned and all that. But then we talked about this and we decided that we would make use of the methodology that wouldn't offend people. Now, how can we call in a cabinet minister to our office and say that we want you to tell us this and that? So we started rather quietly, that instead of doing that, we would invite people to come. And eventually, I suggested that we invited those who have been violating people's rights because of the law and so on and so forth, and those who have made complaints to come together. And we started that, and it seemed to work very well. Since it was sort of a new thing, people were a bit surprised. What? You know, am I going to meet with the police? So we would tell them, we'll be there. We'll be there. The commissioners will be there. The staff member will be there. And we have been working now for 5 years. And we have seen the differences. So this is a part of our inquiry. Of course, when it gets to some serious matter, so we need something in writing. We will write it up and we need their signatures. And then we explain to them why and all that kind of things. And in the process of doing that, with the villagers, you know, the so-called marginalized people, we even give them some very, very informal lessons on law about rights, about their rights, that they have the right to talk to the authorities, to the police, to anybody, and they can't get hurt. We guarantee that they won't get hurt. For the case of another village in the Mae Ai, we would do the same thing, and we chose to meet in the Buddhist temple. It worked very well. And we would invite the Buddhist monk to sit there. They won't say anything because it won't be proper until we ask them. They sit there, and that calms down everybody. That creates the very proper atmosphere.